If you love wisdom, put your mind up to the ceiling. Don't let it stay in the gutter. Don't let your heart get all cluttered. No, I did not stutter. Listen to all that I've muttered. Your life will only go well if you win wisdom or lovers.
If you're in love with wisdom, come inside.
Come inside. Come inside.
The truth will surely rescue you and I.
You and I. You and I.
If you're in love with wisdom, come inside.
Come inside. Come inside.
The truth will surely rescue you and I.
All right, welcome back to For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets. We are on hour 2 of the show, and today we are discussing the wisdom of diversity, right? This is a very important topic and one that I think everyone can relate to, or at least they should. In hour 1, we discussed a lot of good information. If you missed it, don't worry about it. You can always listen to past episodes online. Just look up For the Love of Wisdom.
If you're in love with wisdom, come inside.
Come inside.
Hey, what's going on, Wisdom family? Each week on For the Love of Wisdom, we promote a new and free audiobook that we believe you will benefit from and become wiser by listening to. On today's show, we're talking about the wisdom of diversity. And so, the recommended book for this week is Unity in Diversity. This book is all about how we can all come together despite our racial, ethnic, or gender differences. To download this free book today, just visit audibletrial.com/lovewisdom. audibletrial.com/lovewisdom.
All right, we are back. You're listening to North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you. So glad you could hang out with me this afternoon. Today we are discussing the wisdom of diversity. And just remember, if you missed the show, or if you missed the first hour, no worries. You can always listen back to the podcast version of the show. You just go on iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, iHeart, any place where you like listening to podcasts. Just look up For the Love of Wisdom, and you should be able to hear past episodes. So what we're discussing today, even though we're live right now, you'll be able to hear the show later as a podcast. Probably by the end of tonight, possibly by tomorrow, the episode should be there. So just look out for that. All right, so we are looking at some of the headlines related to diversity right now. We're looking at diversity within the university, and how the Trump administration actually recently has said that they are looking to put a stop to that, saying that it's not necessary, saying that promoting diversity within the university, or saying that people should be admitted into a college based on their race, is unconstitutional. And so we looked at how that is just probably not the best way to interpret this situation, and it's unfortunate that he is on that side of the argument when it comes to this. But there are many people who are pushing against that, saying we need this diversity within the university system. There's so many benefits to it outside of just being fair. That's not the main argument. People aren't just saying, hey, it's not fair, that a certain person can't be there. But they're actually highlighting the fact that this is something that benefits everyone. This is something that benefits the workforce, and ultimately something that benefits the U.S. economy. So it's an ongoing discussion, but it's something that's really important, something that we can't forget about. So here's one right here that speaks about a guy named Robert Fields. Okay, he is running for Wilson County Commissioner within Nashville, Tennessee, and this is pretty interesting. It's the headline says Wilson County Commission candidate criticized for interracial marriage post. Interesting. This just came out a few days ago. All right, and so this article was written by Andy Humbles of the Nashville Tennessean. All right, and here's what he has to say here. Robert Fields, a candidate for Wilson County Commissioner, is under fire after a social media comment that referenced his opponent, Tim Roller's interracial marriage. How did he do that exactly? All right, so here is what Robert Fields said in relation to Tim Roller's wife. He said he kept quiet that he is a Democrat, an interracial couple, 2 interracial children, and stated one occupation and one newspaper and totally different in the local. Now, the things that really have caught everyone's attention here are the fact that he's basically saying that this guy doesn't have credibility because, for one, his wife is of a different ethnicity, so he's in an interracial marriage, and 2, that he has interracial children. And he's basically saying that this is a negative thing, and this is a reason why people should not vote him in as the next Wilson County Commissioner. It's pretty bad, right? So this post right now, this was something that he posted on his Facebook account, and I guess after this started to be spread around, this comment was deleted from his Facebook account. However, before he deleted it, there were people that took a screenshot of this, and they've been circulating it around. It actually got to the Nashville Tennessean newspaper, and it also blew up on social media. So this was a pretty serious. Tim Roller, the candidate that he was referring to here, who he was saying basically shouldn't win because he has a wife of a different ethnicity and has interracial children. All right, here's what he had to say about this. So on his Facebook page, he referred to his opponent Robert Fields as a racist and stated, "Fields' comment implicitly shows you clearly that you believe that my wife's race is a negative, or that our marriage somehow makes me inferior to you." Right? And understandably so, he was upset. He's like, why would this even be part of the conversation? Why does that even matter? Wilson County District 9 Commissioner Sarah Patton wants to present a resolution condemning the Facebook post, saying, "We won't tolerate this kind of mindset in Wilson County government if Fields is elected and plans to accept the office." Right? So the good thing is they are looking to do something about this. Texas is one of those places, just like many other places within the United States, that has a long history of racial divide. So we see that this type of thinking still permeates the minds of some within Texas, as it does in many other states in the U.S. And things like that, when they happen, as unfortunate as they are, they're good because they open up people's eyes. They remind people that, hey, there are still problems going on. There are still injustices. Here's an article which I think ties into that one. It's about a woman who actually experienced racism maybe for the first time when she married someone outside of her race, and it talks about the different struggles that she had. Her name is Amanda Williams, and it says Amanda Williams' father is a member of the Cheyenne tribe, but her mother Rebecca is white. So basically Amanda lives in Oklahoma, and she talks about some of the racism that she experienced just because she married a man who is Indian or Native American. So here's what she has to say about it. Racism that she experienced in Western Oklahoma. She says, "I was doing music for a church camp meeting, and that's where I met my husband." She says, when we lived in Mountain View, there was a little grocery store, and they would carry out everyone else's groceries except for mine. So she says she wondered why they wouldn't carry her groceries out. And she was told, "We won't carry your groceries out because you're a white woman and you married an Indian." So that was pretty harsh, right? She was taken aback by that. She said, "Why?" Because there were white people, she explained. These were white people who had a problem with the fact that she married an Indian. However, that area had a large population of Indian or Native American people, so she couldn't understand why they were targeting her, and she wasn't even Native American herself. But just the fact that she married a Native American, I guess to them was considered offensive. They had a problem with that. She said she even experienced it from her husband's family as well. She said, my husband's family was not really receptive to me being white. They were offended that I would do things that were outside of their culture, such as making eye contact, trying to shake their hands or get them coffee. Women just did not do these kind of things in their culture, so it took some getting used to, right? So this was difficult. This was difficult for her to deal with, right? But it just shows you the reality of this situation, how much diversity can make people uncomfortable. But it is great to see that people, despite the persecution that they receive, they're still willing to say, you know what, we don't care what you think. We want to be together, and so we're going to be together. Right? So it's pretty awesome. More on that after this. You are listening on North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you. And this is JC Johnson for the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets.
Hey everybody, you're listening to For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets.
With your host, Jason Johnson.
Right, welcome back. We're on North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you. And on today's episode of For the Love of Wisdom, we are talking about the wisdom of diversity. All right, so this is a really, really important topic, something that we definitely need to pay more attention to. And we're looking at headlines right now. These are recent headlines, different things that have happened within the U.S. specifically. Really things that happen around the world, but they're more prevalent in the U.S. And we've been talking about diversity within the university system, how that's being challenged. We're talking about how some are being ridiculed for being in interracial marriage relationships and having interracial children. It's a pretty serious thing when you think about it, that in 2018 this is still such a big problem for people, but that's why we talk about these things. That's why we want to open dialogue about them, because this stuff is important. And if you are a millennial or younger, then one day you are going to be one of the future leaders in this country. So all of the older people, people who remember the Jim Crow days and all of that, these people are going to be gone one day. Most of them are already fading out. So there is going to be a new generations that come up, and it's up to us really to decide whether or not we are going to continue some of the stereotypes and incorrect thinking that have pervaded society's past. It's up to us if we're going to keep that stuff going or if we're going to do something different. Now, as mentioned before, if you heard it, there is a book of the week every week, and I really like to encourage people to read. But even if you're not able to actually pick up a physical book and flip through the pages, the great thing about technology is that there are audiobooks, and the audiobook that I really recommend for this week is one called Unity and Diversity. It's available in audiobook format, right? And so if you're like me and you like to listen to things on the go, maybe when you're in the car or when you're working out on the treadmill, with your earbuds, whatever, however you like to listen. If you like to absorb information that way, I definitely recommend that you check out the book Unity and Diversity. It's written by Rosemary Tong, and it's available on Audible. So if you don't have an Audible account already, through For the Love of Wisdom, you can actually download an audiobook for free. Just go to audibletrial.com/lovewisdom, right? And you'll be able to download that. Again, that's audibletrial.com/lovewisdom. All right, so in the book Unity and Diversity, it really makes a lot of great points. This is a short read as well. It should only take you maybe 2-3 hours to get through, but it's packed with good information. I think it's something great for really starting this conversation about the importance of diversity and how we can become united within that. Here's something from the publisher about it. In any social arrangement, especially in a nation as large and diverse as the United States, the many differences among people are all too obvious. We have different capacities and resources, and we live with vastly different circumstances and outcomes. Within such splendid diversity, where shall we find a basis for unity? And what can equality possibly mean? Racism has a long and well-known history in the United States, and there have been many struggles to overcome its legacy. Yet many of the attempts to eliminate racism have been coercive, producing a powerful conflict between equality and liberty. Very powerful right there, but it really, speaks about what this book is about, right? So it's going back into the roots. It's looking at how did we get to this place where we're at in the first place? What happened? So it really tells the backstory and shows how we got to where we are now in 2018. It goes on to speak about ethnocentrism. It says, ethnocentrism, judging others as inferior because of their culture, race, or religious background, presents many of the same kinds of problems as racism. A nation of immigrants, such as the U.S., is particularly challenged to accommodate a wide variety of ethnic and cultural backgrounds, while seeking some common foundation for a sense of unity. Now, that is the other flip of the coin, isn't it? Right? So it's not always just about racism. And racism is, typically considered the majority, looking at or speaking negatively in regards to the minority. But it's not just that, right? There is also ethnocentrism, which can be done by anyone who's basically saying my race is better than yours. Because I am Italian, I am better than you. Or because I am from Zimbabwe, I'm better than you, right? Because my parents are from Yugoslavia, I'm better than you. Or because my skin is this color, I'm better than you because your skin is that color. This ethnocentrism is not good. Now, it's important to have a healthy sense of who you are, to not be ashamed of who you are or where you come from. I mean, even to go as far as just having pride from where you come from, to say, hey, I'm glad I'm black. I'm glad that I'm white. I appreciate that that part of who I am. I like this, I like who I am. I like who my parents are. I like who my grandparents are. I like where I came from. There's nothing wrong with that and celebrating that or appreciating that. The problem is when you then go so far to say that because of this race, because my skin is this color, I am now better than this person or that person. That's where it's just really just taking it too far. But we do see a lot of that. And for minorities, sometimes this can happen as a result of dealing with racism, right? Because, after a while, a person may say, well, if I'm going to be treated so harshly for being a particular race, what I need to do is start elevating myself, start elevating my race and saying that it's actually better than this other race of people who are oppressing me or who are speaking negatively about me. But that doesn't solve anything. You can't fight fire with fire, right? So if something is negative, you're not gonna conquer that negativity with negativity. The only way to conquer negativity is with positivity, right? The only way to conquer foolishness is with wisdom. Right? right? So we don't fight fire with fire. It doesn't make anything better. It just makes a bigger mess. It just consumes everything even that much quicker, right? So here's another one. It says the United States is simultaneously committed to liberty, justice, and equality, but there is a clear and profound trade-off between liberty and equality. What is the proper balance between these conflicting ideals? And what processes and institutions help us manage the trade-off? Our task is to find unity in diversity. Pluribus unum, right, is the Latin phrase that they have here. It says it's a motto that means out of many, one. That's powerful. Pluribus unum, out of many, one, right? So that is that unity that comes out of diversity. So it's pretty great. Look up the book on Audible. Again, you can download it for free through For the Love of Wisdom. Just go to audibletrial.com/lovewisdom and download your free copy today. Right, you're listening on North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you. We'll be right back after this. JC Johnson, For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets.
For the love of wisdom. For the love of wisdom.
For the love of wisdom.
For the love of wisdom.
Hey, what's up, y'all? This is JC Johnson, host of the radio show For the Love of Wisdom. Join me on NorthCoastUnderground.com as we tackle the biggest topics of our day: sex, money, family, drugs, peace, God, wisdom. For the love of wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets.
Listen to For the Love of Wisdom Thursdays at 4 on NorthCoastUnderground.com.
You're now listening to For the Love of Wisdom on NorthCoastUnderground.com, where the underground starts with who? No other but you.
Right, welcome back. You were listening to For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets. And as always, you know you're listening on North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you. All right, so on today's show, we are discussing the wisdom of diversity, right? And we've looked at a lot of information, right? So we've looked at some of the headlines relating to diversity. We looked at some literature that's really beneficial, something that speaks more on the topic. And I'd also like to just take a look at what other people have to say. Some notable, some, well-known people, some not so well-known people. Let's see what they have to say about this particular topic. All right. So we have one here from Robert Kennedy. Here's what he has to say. Ultimately, America's answer to the intolerant man is diversity. Think about that for a second. Intolerant, right? So a person who's intolerant, right? That is a person who does not accept a certain person or idea. Now, intolerance is a word that is used a lot in our society to speak about, people who they consider to be closed-minded, but sometimes they're referring to maybe people who are taking a stand for something, people who are actually speaking out against something that is negative, and they're called intolerant because of that. But I don't think that that's a great use of the word intolerant. I think that when we're talking about intolerance, it should mean, well, for one, if you are speaking out against something negative, then you can say that person is being intolerant. But in that case, I don't think that that's a negative thing. Like, if you're speaking out against child pornography and someone says, oh, he's intolerant to child pornography, well, that's a good thing. You're supposed to be intolerant to that. You're not supposed to say, well, yeah, I gather my friends around, we pop some popcorn and look at the latest, movies. Like, no, that's not a good thing. That's something that we do need to be intolerant about. But there are things that are bad, or I should say good, that people are intolerant of, and things that have nothing to do really with, good and evil. They just are what they are. Like, let's say a person's ethnicity, for example. there's nothing wrong with a person's ethnicity, and it's not like because this person is this ethnicity, then they're better than everyone else. No, it's just something that can't be controlled. It's something that someone is. It's a culture that a person was born into. It's an ethnicity that comes from their parents, right? So intolerance, as it relates to a group of people, is not a good thing, because that's when you're getting into being prejudiced. And being prejudiced really is just how the word sounds, prejudging. It's about making a judgment against a person or an entire group of people without even getting to know them, without having any true basis upon which to judge them, without previous knowledge, right? So Robert Kennedy, I think, is correct in saying that we need to not be intolerant. In that case, we need to be tolerant as far as accepting all people, regardless of who they are or where they come from. Now, as far as accepting every action, that's a totally different conversation, right? But we're not talking about the actions of people. We're talking about just the people in and of themselves. Adolf Hitler, he's someone who we can make so many examples about, because he is someone in culture who represents what many would consider to be evil. But Adolf Hitler, the person, we're not talking about what he did. We're not talking about the Holocaust. We're not talking about any of the evil he's done, but just him as a person, right? Just like you and me, he is a person who had intrinsic value. He's someone who had worth. He's somebody who was created by God. He's somebody that God cares about. He's someone who had family. His family cared about him. He had, I'm sure, some positive attributes. And that's not to make light of any of the evil that he did, but it's just to highlight the fact that every human being has value. Everyone is important. And the problem is when we're not able to separate people from what we think they are, or things that we think that they have done. Even if a person has committed mass murders, there's nothing good about those mass murders. But we should have compassion for someone like that, because we should say, wow, if someone is able to do that, there must be something wrong with them. There's something wrong with their mind. This person is on a destructive path. This is a person who is someone who must be struggling internally with all types of things. This must be someone who has no peace whatsoever. So it can be hard, right? It can be hard to have compassion towards someone who has hurt you, right? But I think that we do need to do a better job of that. We're not always going to be perfect with that. It's something that's difficult, but by God's grace, I think we can do that, right? Here's another one from Catherine Pulsifer. She says, "We are all different, which is great because we are all unique. Without diversity, life would be very boring." And that's true, right? That reminds me of another saying. I'm not sure who said it. I believe this was an anonymous quote, but this person said that basically it's when you take a bunch of different flowers and you put them together, that's how you make a bouquet, right? And sometimes there are bouquets that have just one particular type of flower, like a bouquet of roses, right? But then there are other times when you have a bouquet that has multiple flowers with multiple colors, right? And it's beautiful when it all comes together, right? It's that diversity that actually makes it stand out. It's what actually makes people like it. It's not the fact that it's all the same, but it's the fact that there's plenty of differences that people appreciate, right? So that's something that we have to keep in mind as it relates to people, right? If you group a bunch of different people together, one thing you'll be able to appreciate is, all right, if let's say you got someone who is Asian, you got another person who is Ukrainian, you got another person who's from Afghanistan, you have someone who's African American, so on and so forth. You put them all together, you're able to see what each person brings to the table. You're able to see not only differences of culture, you're seeing different colors, you're seeing beauty, really, because of that diversity, because of those differences, them coming together. them being unified, especially when you can see people from different backgrounds getting along. That's an awesome thing. It's incredible. And it's something that shows the beauty in the world. Just like a bouquet of flowers that have lots of different flowers and you put them all together and it creates a beautiful bouquet. It's the same when you have people from different backgrounds that can all come together to do something positive, to impact one another in a great way. Here's another one right here before we go. This one is from Tyler Cohen. He says, real cultural diversity results from the interchange of ideas, products, and influences, not from the insular development of a single national style. Right? So again, he's saying the same thing here. It's with these different ideas, these different products, these different influences. It's with all of these different things. When you group them all together, that's when you create something awesome. Not when everything is uniform, not when everything is just like the other thing, right? Imagine opening a box of crayons and all the colors were your favorite color. Now, you might appreciate the fact that it's your favorite color, but then you might say, well, even though this is my favorite, it's kind of annoying because I can't really do anything of much value if I can only use one color, even if it's my favorite color, right? But more on that after this. You're listening to North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you.
It's your boy, Tear It Up, Tommy Tom from Beyond Sports, and you're listening to For the Love of Wisdom
with your host, Jason Johnson.
All right, welcome back. We are on the last leg of the episode for today. Thank you so much for tuning in on North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you. All right, so today we are discussing the wisdom of diversity, right? And we are going to conclude today just by speaking about what the Bible has to say about diversity. I love using the Bible as a reference because I think that it really is the best place for us to get any kind of wisdom that we might need. And if God is the one who created the universe, then who but him would be able to answer all of life's questions, right? So the first one is from 1 Corinthians 14 verse 26, and it says, so brothers and sisters, what should you do when you meet together? One person has a song, another has a teaching, and another has a new truth from God. One person speaks in a different language, and another interprets that language. The purpose of whatever you do should be to help everyone grow stronger in faith. So what this is saying here, and this is referencing to when people gather together, most specifically people who are gathering together for a Christian gathering, right? It's saying that different people have different gifts. They have different strengths. They have something different that they're bringing to the table that's unique. So it's saying that not everyone is coming together to do the same thing. But what it's saying is that everyone has something different to offer. So one person has a teaching, one person has a song, etc. So it's just like with a conference. Maybe you have a conference that has a musical guest. You have guest speakers. You have guest musicians. You have people that greet you at the front door. You have people that, collect tickets. Maybe people that have you register. It's like everyone has a different function. And if all these people weren't working together to do this, then it wouldn't go well. So that's what this is saying here. It's saying that everyone has something unique to do, similar to the verse that was used, or the passage that was used towards the beginning of the show from 1 Corinthians 12, where it talked about how each member of the human body has a different function. The eye has a function that the ear doesn't have. The ear has a function that the mouth doesn't have. The fingers have a function that the toes don't have, right? But when they all come together, when they all work together, the human body is able to function and move properly. And so that leads into Romans chapter 12, verses 4 through 8. Similar topic here. It says, each one of us has one body, and that body has many parts. These parts don't all do the same thing. In the same way, we are many people, But in Christ, we are all one body. We are the parts of that body, and each part belongs to all the others. We all have different gifts. Each gift came because of the grace God gave us. Whoever has the gift of prophecy should use that gift in a way that fits the kind of faith they have. Whoever has the gift of serving should serve. Whoever has the gift of teaching should teach. Whoever has the gift of comforting others should do that. Whoever has the gift of giving to others should give generously. Whoever has the gift of leading should work hard at it. Whoever has the gift of showing kindness to others should do it gladly, right? So this is saying no matter what it is that you are gifted at, make sure that you do that wholeheartedly, right? And people are going to benefit from that, because only you are the only you that exists, right? So only you can do what you can do. The impact that you have on the world is something that only you have. That's what makes you a unique individual. And then here's one from the book of Acts, chapter 10, verse 34 and 35. I'm going to look at it from two different translations because I think each one highlights some important things. The first is from the ESV, and it says, "So Peter opened his mouth and said, 'Truly I understand that God shows no partiality, but in every nation, anyone who fears him and does what is right is acceptable to him.'" Right? So I really like how this translation highlights the fact that God does not show partiality. He's impartial. And so when, sometimes when people think of God, they think of him as this, harsh person or someone who's just waiting to rain judgment down upon you. But what this is saying is that he's not partial, right? So he's not looking at one person as better than another, or one person as more important than the other, right? But the way that God looks at it, everyone is on an even playing field. What he wants to know is, how do you respond to him, right? That's what matters. Here's another translation from the easy reading version, which I really like. I think it really makes the reading of the scripture a lot more clear. And it says here, "Peter began to speak. I really understand now that God does not consider some people to be better than others. He accepts anyone who worships him and who does what is right. It is not important what nation they come from." And that's really important too, right? Because you might say, well, does God really care about me? I'm from Ethiopia. Does God really care about me if I'm from Tanzania, or if I'm from Germany, or if I'm from Australia? Does God really care? Does he care about me that I'm from Minnesota? Does he care more about people who are from North Dakota, right? But this is saying no. Regardless of your nation, regardless of your country, regardless of what state you live in within a particular country, God sees everyone the same. And one last one here from Revelation chapter 7 verses 9 and 10. It says, "Then I looked and I saw that there was a large crowd of people. There were so many people that no one could count them all. They were from every nation, tribe, race of people, and language of the earth. They were standing before the throne and before the Lamb. They all wore white robes and had palm branches in their hands. They shouted loudly, 'Victory belongs to our God, who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb.'" And this right here is great because it speaks about God's desire. His desire is that all the nations of the world would be with him in heaven for eternity, right? He wants every single person, regardless of whether you're white, black, Asian, Hispanic, American Indian, right? Whatever. He doesn't care about what your ethnicity is, but he wants every nation to know him. He wants every nation to be with him for eternity. So just remember that. Until next time, you're listening to For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets.
Knowledge is power, power is money, and money makes the world go round.
Money, power, respect, I get it higher, learning, yeah, I'm winning. Only get better with time, keep God in my mind with wisdom, there's no limit. There's no limit, get up and get it. Can achieve the impossible, conquer every obstacle. Exhausted from grinding, constantly pushing, do what they say I could. Life is what you make it. Knowledge is power, don't let them take it. If you're in love with wisdom, come inside.
Come inside. Come inside.
The truth will surely rescue you and I.
You and I. You and I.
If you're in love with wisdom, come inside.
Come inside. Come inside.
The truth will surely rescue you and I.
This has been a presentation of the Ohio Media School.
Jam, man. Work it. Turn the whole thing up.
NorthCoastUnderground.com, where the underground starts with you.